You're listening to the B&H Photography Podcast. For over 40 years, B&H has been the professional source for photography, video, audio, and more. For your favorite gear, news, and reviews, visit us at bnh.com or download the B&H app to your iPhone or Android device. Now here's your host, Alan Weitz.
Greetings and welcome to the B&H Photography Podcast. Today, John Harris and I are going to be chatting with wedding and portrait photographer Sam Hurd. Now, Sam actually started as a portrait photographer for the National Press Club in Washington, D.C., where he photographed notables from political and entertainment worlds, but he was drawn to wedding work, as he says, as a space to promote more inventive ideas. Today, I'm going to be talking about some of those inventive ideas and a bit about his portraiture, but the topic today is more about how to monetize, how to get extra earnings from all of the photo work that you're already doing. Sam, welcome to the program. Pleasure to have you here today.
Hey, Alan. Thanks for having me. Really appreciate it.
Yeah. But by the way, we'd be remiss if we didn't mention that Sam is also a photo educator and a podcast host of all things, all of which plays into the topic today. So let's get started. You have a lot of different things that you're doing right now. Again, a lot of people these days are say they were wedding photographers or whatever it is, and times have changed in the past year, to say the least. And we have to look for new ways of earning income and maximizing what we've got. And you've got a few ways of doing that. You've actually worked through all of this stuff. Can you give us a little introduction to this? What you're doing that's different aside from just taking pictures at weddings and selling albums?
Yeah, absolutely. So you mentioned there where I am quoted saying weddings kind of offer up a creative space for me to push more inventive ideas. And a lot of that comes from the fact that I run my wedding business completely on my own. I'm self-employed. When I was working at the press club, I was on staff, salaried. I did have a little bit of creative latitude, but at the same time, I was really in a bit of a box. And one of the things, going out on my own, being a business of one, I kind of realized this paranoia that was related to me being the sole source of my income, right? So not only were weddings sort of this really high pressure, intense environment that made it really satisfying to find something unique or cool in a moment, and kind of like blow people's minds with, how did you capture that? I didn't even notice that was happening behind you, or like it didn't look like as cool as you made it look, whatever. I have been obsessed with finding ways to sort of insulate myself, running a business of one person with diversified revenue streams, basically. So even like my first year, right out of the gate, I started playing around with for free, really blogging little like unique new ideas or things that I'd figured out on my own, whether it be shooting through a prism or like other kind of photo effects. And that sort of eventually translated into teaching like in-person workshops. And it didn't ever become the primary source of my revenue, but it became a really nice fallback sort of thing to pad maybe the slower points of the wedding season. When it was really cold, January, February, I would typically ramp up workshops. And basically over time, I started coming up with new ways to take this incredibly high volume, 4,000 or 5,000 images that I would shoot at a wedding and turn it into other ways of making money through, what used to be in-person workshops, kind of slowly transitioned to online education. And, I'm happy to talk about the specifics of each of those if you have questions. But the big thing for me was starting something called a Patreon feed, which is basically just a monthly subscription feed that anybody can come and go as they want, but you get access to the whole thing when you sign up. And it's a place for me to just share stuff as it evolves, as I go along. One of the things I was always fascinated by were these photographers in the education space that would create these discrete workshops. Like, here is my posing workshop. Here is my editing preset workshop, whatever it is. But for me, it's always been such an evolution in what I learn and how I go as a photographer. Patreon fit really well because it's like a per post thing. Whatever I find that day that I'm working on that I think is interesting, I can post. I can take a week in between posting. I can post whenever I want. And basically, it thankfully sort of pandemic proofed my business because from 2016 to now 2020, I kind of built this community there. And it's all derived and predicated on me having, work to share from weddings. And again, because it is such high volume work, I tend to have a limitless amount of little insights I can derive. And it doesn't always have to be a huge, big idea.
If I can interrupt for a second, you're with Patreon, okay? And you are now you have these zillions of pictures, like we said up front. You shoot a wedding, you got 80 to 100 pictures, and the rest of them are just all there. And you're talking about monetizing. What exactly are you selling?
I'm selling access to the feed, and the feed that is on my Patreon page can be anything. Like when you go to create a new post, for example, as the controller of the Patreon page, I can say, okay, I want to post a photo. And with that photo, it may be, the final end result of a portrait that I posted on Instagram or something like that. And so along with that, maybe I'll write an article that has some behind the scenes, like iPhone photos with more perspective and context into what was happening. Or maybe I'll just write about my thought process and what led me to that. So I'm not selling like, here's access to a photo that you can then, download and do something with as the consumer. I'm selling, access to the content, the education, the insight behind what's happening. But again, you mentioned earlier, I do a podcast. So I also occasionally post episodes of the podcast as like early release as a benefit for people that are there. They get it the moment it's ready instead of weeks later when it's public. Stuff like that.
So this is more or less your blog, or a blog, but you're charging folks or folks are paying as they come and go. Have you noticed which type of posts tend to draw the most folks?
Eyeballs, yeah, I would say deconstructions. So, or what I call deconstructions.
Right.
Anybody could call it something behind the scenes. I've been really ramping up my video game in terms of a lot of weddings, at least during the portrait time, where I have a lot more control and I give a lot more direction to my clients. I pop a little GoPro on my, my regular camera. I mostly shoot now with the Canon R6. So I pop a GoPro on there and record, the super wide angle take of the entire thing. And then I'll kind of re-edit that perspective with some voiceover and just explaining my thought process. So like, here's the photo, here are all the steps with some wider context, a few minutes before and leading up to the actual photo. So people have a deeper understanding of everything that kind of falls into place to create that. So the deconstructions are definitely the most high value, but I do like I'm shocked sometimes at what does really well. One was like basically a preset brush that I made for helping like people with thinning hairlines. It's like something like sometimes for whatever reason, I photograph somebody in the wrong light or the wrong angle, their hairlines are thinning. I'm like, well, here's a brush that I made that just instantly rejuvenates someone's hair. And people love that. So sometimes it's really, honestly, I think the value is in those smaller little things that take 30 seconds to learn, but save you hours of time.
How do you promote yourself on Patreon? I mean, do they do anything? Do you have to be proactive on it?
Yeah. That's one of the biggest, Patreon is a company that's existed probably since 2012. They really started as more of a YouTuber musician type of focus. In fact, I'm one of the few photographers of any note on there. A lot of the photographers, to be honest, that are there and label themselves that, sell like sort of lewd pictures of themselves that you can pay to get access to. It's not like an educational photography platform, but it does work really well in that way. So Patreon, that's one of the big pushbacks they get. They don't like internally on their own site promote anybody really at all. It helps and is sort of critical to either have a really good comprehensive advertising campaign to reach eyeballs of people that you think would be interested, or already have a pre-established audience of that. And that's where I've been lucky in my evolution to have had, I did about maybe 60 in-person workshops from like 2012 to 2017, just peppered throughout, just traveling all over, teaching wedding photographers, what I do. And so that kind of was easily able to port over into something, in the online world. But Patreon's getting better about building tools to find other people that are in similar genres. But unfortunately, I would say if anybody is out there considering it as a way to monetize what they do, it comes with drawbacks, being that they really do try and appeal to podcasters, YouTubers, musicians. Like any change they make, they get pushback from people because it doesn't make sense for you as a photographer or you as whatever relative to what the change is intended for. But with that, I don't have to do anything. I was able to essentially blink a business into existence overnight, at least fundamentally, like the structure. I mean, I only had like 10 patrons for the first 3 months, but eventually it started growing and I didn't have to do anything. No upfront costs, none of that.
And the patrons,
there's always trade-offs.
The patrons pay per session, right? There's not like a monthly fee, correct?
It's a monthly fee. It's not a pay per post. It's not a pay. That's the other thing where, it can be confusing because of the way a lot of photography educators work. It is like a discrete product you buy and then you download and that's it. And then you can buy another one if you want. Because it's a feed of content, basically, I think it's really cool because you can sign up in January and then maybe not want to stick around and come back in June. And as long as you're paid for that month, you can get access to the entire back catalog of everything that's posted. Can
you count on like a monthly income from that? Do the numbers kind of maintain themselves every month, or is it something you have to kind of check and worry? Okay. This month, yeah.
So, and again, this will be specific to how each individual person operates as to whether or not this is a benefit or not. But I do have a baseline sense of how many people on average leave versus how many people stick around. So there is a layer of predictability there. I think a lot of photographers, at least in the early months, get a little I don't know what the right word is, but sad when they have you have 10 people there and one leaves. It's like, oh, they hate me. It makes you not want to work. But for me, that tends to be a motivator. Like I really want to earn those people back or make them regret leaving. So it tends to actually motivate me to do more work. And that accountability is something that never really existed before I had Patreon. As a self-employed person shooting weddings, I was only accountable to my wedding clients and the timeline I had committed to for them. So anyway, it is a layer of predictable income. It does fluctuate every month, but past a certain point, you can kind of anticipate that, which is really, really nice.
I know from personal experience, there's a young artist I know who I make a small donation to every month. It's just an ongoing thing. The first of the month, my card is charged and I give them X amount. And whenever this person comes up with a new illustration or something, I get a notification and I get copies of it and I can go and take a look at her work anytime. So that's how I know it works there. I'm not sure how many other subscribers. I know at least one other subscriber to that particular person's site, but it is an interesting way of producing extra income. And I never really thought of Patreon in those terms. Interesting.
And it really can fundamentally shift your thinking. Like I find now, whenever I'm shooting, I'm trying to invent new insights into what I'm doing for the benefit of Patreon because it exists now. And so I tend to push myself even harder to do better work for my clients at the end of the day, or at least generally my clients hire me because they want me to be creative and inventive. And so, that doesn't work if that's not what your clients want from you. But at the end of the day, I think it really does align well with incentives across the board for how I've got it set up.
Do you have any kind of idea of who they are and, age groups, professions and things like that?
Vast majority are full-time wedding photographers, specifically weddings. Yeah, I would say 80%. The rest are part-time portrait photographers, people that just like me and my ideas and want me to do what I do, which is really fantastic. The other thing, is people are actively paying to be there, so I don't have to fight any algorithmic beatdown with any content I put out. I know it gets emailed and is available to every single person, whatever 1,000+ people are on my Patreon. So that's also very freeing. It's so disheartening to spend a lot of time on maybe a YouTube video or something that takes hours of labor and, nobody sees it, or your full, 1% of your full audience sees it. That's so annoying.
And anyway. Can you tell how often, what percentage does look at, I know I kind of asked this question already, but of the pool of people that are subscribed, how many do tend to look at each individual post?
It's interesting because you would think that, so I've got about 1,000 people. And so on average, I would say 300 engage with any single post. Right. So I'm sure it's a good mix of, maybe half of those people are the same every single post, but I think the rest do not. So it's interesting as a platform to be paying for something where you don't necessarily know what you're going to get next. Mm-hmm. And I think a lot of people just like the idea of having that content built up. I post like 5 or 6, good quality in-depth posts a month. And that's a lot for people to keep up with, but they just kind of stay there. And when they get free time or they see a post about something they hadn't considered or weren't even aware of that they'd be interested in, they get to it and they come back. But I would say on average, maybe 300 or so engage with every single post. right off the bat. Again, over the length of like a year that somebody subscribed, I'd say most people engage with everything at some point.
Does it cross promote the wedding work itself, or does it kind of live in a bubble of other photographers?
Didn't think it would. I did not think that it would, but I've found through talking to my clients is that so as part of promoting Patreon, I'll share teasers of like sort of what it looks like with the behind the scenes deconstruction or whatever. And what I found is a lot of wedding clients say like, we love seeing that greater context, even a glimpse of it, even if we don't know what you're talking about. We love seeing sort of what you're working with and what you're able to create from it. We understand the value of what we're hiring you to do a lot more than we otherwise would have if we only saw what everybody else posts, which is the end result portfolio or a really nicely curated blog post.
Right.
But that was by accident. I didn't really know. I've always thought of my wedding clients and my photographer clients as totally 100% separate ideas, but there's more overlap than I realize sometimes.
Yeah. No, that's interesting.
But one thing that's really powerful about Patreon, because it is sort of this walled garden, there is the friction and the wedge of money. I feel a lot more comfortable sharing things I wouldn't on like a public blog, like the hairbrush preset thing, right? I don't know that I would want to blog that with some wedding client's photos. Like I absolutely wouldn't. I can already say that. But on Patreon, I feel much more insulated to people that would never take offense to like, having like a public photo of like a thinning hairline and then me brushing it back. That's just awkward and weird. But that's an extreme example, but there's so many little things that I would never share with the pure public, but in this sort of medium space of Patreon.
And have you stopped blogging, or do you still blog?
No, I need to blog more because you need to strike a balance between what is completely, locked behind Patreon and what is still public and free to grow your audience and get new eyeballs. You tap out on your own Instagram following or whatever within a few months. Like the people that are aware of you and follow you are going to convert to patrons or they're not. And so blogging is something I still do. Like a lot of times what I'll do is take a review or something that I wrote about on Patreon that did really well. And maybe 6 months later, I'll put it publicly on my blog with hopes that it'll capture some newer eyeballs and convert.
Stocksy, I was not familiar with Stocksy before seeing it in your notes, and I checked it out. It's a stock agency, and that gives actually much better returns to the artist than most. You get, 50 to 75% is what the artist keeps, which is very good in this world. But how does Stocksy different from any other agency otherwise?
Well, I'm not the best. I'm not super into the competitors of like what else exists. So whatever I say, just know that I've basically only used Stocksy because it did pay really, really well, and I got in early with them when they launched, and it's just been a really nice sustained revenue source for me. So I haven't done a lot of research into what else does. Yes, it totally works. And the biggest thing, at least, they have a lot of competitors now. And again, I'm not sure where they were in launch relative to everybody else. But the biggest differentiator I could find was just a very tightly curated and particular look that they're going for. It is not a dumpster of just everything you could possibly need. It's very tightly curated in a way that, if you're on their homepage and you start to vibe with what you're seeing there, it's probably going to be a good fit. If you don't like what you're seeing in their homepage and some of their marketing materials, you're never going to find what you want from them. So it's just a really particular style and curation that is really tight. That comes with a trade-off, though. The vast majority of what I submit to them for consideration is rejected. So that's a lot of work I put into tagging, organizing by color, by season, by event, and all of that just never gets picked up. It's never accepted.
You go to a lot of stock sites and it's like the same drivelly kind of stuff. It's all cliche. It seems to be a little more of an edge to the pictures that I've seen, and a lot more stylistic photography, and seems to be very well composed, which is kind of stuff I like to look at. Definitely look different, at least on the pages that they were showing on their site.
It seems that in their curation, they always want sort of an artistic consideration in terms of playful use of light or composition, for sure. Like every shot has such a distinct composition to it. It's not just about the white background and something that could be used everywhere.
And I saw very little that would look like a Hallmark card, which is, I guess, what I was trying to go for. Also, it is interesting imagery. I like seeing a lot of these pictures.
And given that things are curated and there's editors taking a look at this, have you developed any relationships with people there? Do you have an editor? Can you bounce comments back and forth with the hopes that something might get?
You could. There are a lot of people that go actually full-time with it, and that is their primary source. It is not for me, but they will literally spend and invest upfront thousands of dollars to curate like fall and winter season, but they'll shoot it all in spring. The way, if you were going to be professional about it, it's a smart way to do it. And so they do have some feedback, I think, and relationships. And honestly, Stocksy gives everybody who is paid and active on the site percent like ownership in the company and the decision making into like how they operate. And so I would say if you're more active than I am, you can facilitate those relationships and it'll pay off. But I don't personally do that just because it's not. I, again, because of the high volume work of weddings, tend to have a lot of photos extra that work to sell on this, but I don't go out and proactively
Is it mostly then the stuff that you submit is mostly from weddings, and are they?
Yeah.
I mean,
weddings, personal travel stuff. Yeah. Right. When I was traveling a lot more for workshops, I would shoot, just out on my own. Okay. And so that has definitely slowed up a bit this year, but that tend to be where I drew
and how, I mean, you don't have to give a number, but what kind of return are you getting, when this, is it enough to obviously to justify the effort, right?
Oh, yes. I'd have to, it's certainly thousands of dollars a year. So yeah. It's great because some stuff that I posted literally back in like 2015 or maybe even earlier, I still get random purchases from. So It's got a really long, it's kind of evergreen content, if you want to think of it that way.
Yeah. Something I'm kind of curious about is you have all these photographs from weddings. Now, weddings are events where you have just pedestrians going through there, guests and everything.
Yes.
When you put these pictures out to resell them in some form, repackage them, rebrand them, however you want to talk about it, do you have to deal with model releases? Because these people are just going to a wedding and all of a sudden they might end up in a catalog or an advertisement for all you know.
100%. Yeah. So with Stocksy, there is a very rigid sign off everyone has to do. So I don't, if somebody is visible and able to be, attached in a wedding photo, generally I do still life or something from a wedding if it's going to Stocksy. Okay. With Patreon, I do have explicitly stated in my contract that I can use these photos, and it's actually on the couple to have received permission from people in attendance for me to do whatever I want with the pictures. Again, I don't resell them on Stocksy, but for something educational related or whatever on Patreon, I have not had any pushback. And honestly, being in the DC area, I get a lot of clients that do like sensitive government jobs. I've literally photographed for a CIA spy, and they
Can you tell us this person's name and where they live?
Yeah, I'll tell you where the wedding was. It was not in DC, but they asked, are you comfortable with us not doing that? And it's a tough thing for me because I have to show work to get new work. And I never know what wedding is going to have a photo that yields 10 new clients versus a wedding that yields no new clients for whatever reason. It's just a tough thing to balance. So right now I do offer just like a full buyout of the images where I don't publicly make them accessible to anyone, and the couple, has access to download everything and do what they want privately. But
how much more do you charge in that case? You don't have to give exact numbers, but
it's fine. I charge $2,000 for that buyout.
For that buyout, okay.
Yeah. So now that doesn't include full copyright. They can't then go and if they were to like if they were a celebrity or something, it would be a totally different thing, and that would have to be such a unique case. They can't resell their photos or anything with that. It's just like, hey, I'm not going to be able to use these photos for anything myself in the future to promote. Even that's probably not enough money. I don't know what the right number is, but some weddings I know I book 5 or 6 new ones from it. It's
painful. And you work with a lawyer?
Oh yes, yeah. There's actually one of the more popular photographer lawyers in the industry is based out of DC, and he's pretty great.
All right, so maybe we can jump over to Develop. I'm kind of curious about that, and I've been checking out that site as well, and they offer presets, and maybe you can tell us a little bit about that.
Yeah, and presets are sometimes a debated thing that exists in the world. But what Develop does that I think is, so far, to my knowledge, either one of the earliest ones or still remain to be one of the most unique in what they do, they essentially made themselves a platform. In that, okay, so a lot of photographers say you have a great editing and a great style or whatever, and people are asking how you do it. Can I buy it? You can sit down in Adobe and export whatever your baseline run of the mill that you normally edit with, what those settings are, and sell it to people. But what tends to happen is if they don't have your exact camera body, the lenses you generally use, and everything else, say you sold it and then you sold the preset, and 3 months later you end up buying the new Canon R5 and you were shooting with the Mark IV. Well, that's going to change a lot of the fundamental colors and look of what you're doing. And people that bought the preset would have to also evolve their gear to keep up. Develop basically created their own custom camera calibration profiles to be totally color matched in a fairly unique way. They're using something called dual illuminate raw files that have like two reference points for color, one based on a tungsten light and one based on a daylight. And they are totally flat, whether you're shooting Sony, whether you're shooting Canon. They're all meant to match as closely as you possibly can. They can't account for lens change and variation and what color does with different lenses, but from the sensor level, they match. So I can release a preset pack through Develop, and somebody shooting with Sony or whatever is going to get that exact look or very, very close to it, and have support on into the future. So somebody who bought my preset back in like 2016, if they then this year bought the R6, it's going to match, which is really great.
That's interesting. By the way, for those of you who are trying to figure out, are online looking at Develop, it's DVLOP. It's like a cute license plate.
It's so like, it's the hipster
DVLOP. So it's phonetic. It's not spelled out.
And they also curate, as well. I mean, you're looking at a set of photographers that you can kind of, scroll through and see what you like and choose their work. And I'm even seeing a few that we've had on the show, G.D. Alakija, Chris Burkhardt. So do they...
Oh, that's great.
Was there a vetting process? I mean, did you have to, come to terms with them? Did you have to show off your work, or can anybody just sign up?
Oh, no, they vet pretty heavily. One of the things I'm pushing them to do is get more genres. They're heavily wedding slanted. It's because one of the co-founders is a wedding photographer. Right. And so they definitely have room to grow in terms of more portrait oriented and even more outdoor. Like you mentioned, I think Chris Burkhardt, who I've never met. None of us, I mean, I don't know I know of them, but I don't personally know most of these photographers. And so the guys that run Develop kind of take their time to reach out to people that, they have a distinct enough style that it would fit in the collection, or they just really like them as individuals. So, it doesn't hurt to reach out if you think you have that a distinct enough editing style, for sure.
And did you submit a handful of photos to them and say, take a look, this is what I'm producing, and would you like to work with me?
No, so I was actually approached before launch. Mm-hmm. I think there was really only a smaller handful of established professional wedding photographers that didn't already have presets out. Mm-hmm. It was a pretty, I don't know, maybe it's the same now, but back before Develop launched, everybody had launched presets. So they, for whatever way that they kind of whittled down their short list of people, none of us had ever put out presets. I just didn't want to deal with the support, like literally the technical support of it. Right. I didn't want to put out something, again, like I articulated earlier, like where somebody shooting with a Fuji body was getting totally different results because I was shooting Nikon at the time, whatever. So yeah, they approached me, and I just had never wanted to taste.
Maybe I can, this is a strange question given that we're talking about presets and all, but what do we think about presets? Because I've always found it kind of a weird idea to take somebody else's, handiwork and then apply it to your own, especially when half of the process and half of the fun is kind of, touching, working on your photos after the fact and getting them to the spot that you like. Is it a concept that you had to kind of wrap your mind around, or is it just about, okay, I can make a little extra money here?
Yeah, some of it, certainly it's nice to make extra money, but I would say the core justification for me, again, sort of comes from the educational angle. Before I was really established, I attended a couple workshops. One was actually with a New York photographer named Ryan Brenizer. I don't know if you guys have ever talked to him.
Oh, sure. Yeah, I know.
Yeah. Yep. Love Ryan. And so I went to his workshop, and one of the most valuable parts was seeing his baseline, what you would call a preset, his starting point for how he edits. Of course, the full workshop was much more intense than that in terms of how he edits everything across a dynamic set of environments. But that core starting point and hearing him articulate why and how he got there and all that was so valuable. I learned so much, and it's not like I took his exact settings and hit apply and like, boom, now I'm happy. I could pull 10, 15% shades of what he was doing and start mixing it into my own thing. And other photographers, I've spoken at a lot of conferences. Some people speak about editing. Again, I'll pull 10, 15% of what they're doing in an idea that I hadn't considered or a principle that I hadn't thought about. Right. And again, mix it into my own sort of look, which, I think so. At the end of the day, presets can really. Sometimes somebody's selling something that is really novel and fascinating as like a specific idea, but a lot of times it's just like you want to pull shades from somebody whose work you like and are inspired by, but you're not quite sure how they're getting there. So that tends. I never expect somebody to buy my preset and just one click. This is how my work looks now. I'm just like Sam. But
and what are the price structures for the presets? How does that work?
They launched with a really consistent kind of bundling thing. If you bought two, you would get 3 for a discounted. Now they're all over the map. I have no idea. I know I have a newer pack launching actually in like a month. It's been a couple years since I've freshened up with newer stuff, and it's going to be totally different pricing for that. So it's not consistent. It's hard to say. And they also have an entire part of their business called Powered by Develop. So they'll be the underlying platform for a photographer who does 100% of the work in terms of promoting themselves, their own pack. So they probably are the underlying platform for double the names you actually see on their website here. They just don't promote them as a developed photographer, if that makes sense. And the pricing structure for that's totally different.
Okay, we are going to take a short break and we come back more with Sam Hurd. Stay tuned.
We hope you're enjoying this edition of the B&H Photography Podcast. The best way to support the show is by subscribing on Apple Podcasts, Google Podcasts, Spotify, or wherever you get your podcasts. For links to gear and more information on today's guests, check out the show notes in your podcast app or visit our homepage on the B&H Explorer website and join the B&H Photography Podcast Facebook group. And now, back to the show.
Okay, we are back with Sam Hurd. John, you wanted to ask a question.
Yeah, thanks, Alan, and thank you again, Sam, for joining us. My question is an overall one, and I'm sure you've thought about this a whole bunch, but and again, this probably all goes back to before COVID, and I know the wedding business has been radically changed, and we can talk about that in a little bit, but I mean, a whole lot of time must go into all the side work, if you want to call it that you're doing. I mean, the Patreon, setting up, these blog posts, picking the photos for Stocksy, etc. I mean, if you were to be able to put all of that time, into quote unquote your wedding work, do you think that would be a more of a way to generate more money in that sense? I mean, does this take away at all from the wedding work, if you see my point, or how do you kind of find the right balance? Or is it just the fact that now we're in a weird time and you have a lot more time on your hands and we're going to make it work?
Yeah, that's a great question. I tend to be fairly obsessed, so I don't think I have a healthy work-life balance between what I do. I mentioned earlier with Patreon, it's all predicated on having good, inventive, novel portrait and wedding work to begin with. So they really do kind of feed each other in a lot of ways. It all matters. If as soon as I start getting lazy and I start making photos that are exactly like I've made before, that I've explained before a dozen different ways on Patreon, people start leaving. They've got everything they're out of it. So I'm really motivated to do better work, and hopefully that yields more distinct photos.
One thing, I'm listening to you talk about how you take time to try new things. And again, one of the things about wedding, I've always felt anyway, is that they are very, 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 there's a formula to them. There's a whole pace to it. And of course, the caterer is the one who runs the whole show half the time. Yeah. And I think a big challenge of wedding photography is being creative and coming out with a look that's different from every other wedding photographer. But the truth of the matter is, if you photograph shoes, or if you photograph fashion or cars or whatever you might do with a camera to earn a living, I think part of the process and part of the occupation is to come up with new things and to push yourself, because especially if you're going to be doing this as a way of earning a living for X number of years or even decades, God willing, you have to keep growing and you have to keep learning new things and you have to keep up with technology and take all of these technologies and tools and use what they do in a creative way that makes your work different and or better.
Part of why I tend to also spend a ton of money buying and trying new equipment. But at the end of the day, I actually photograph an entire wedding with mostly 2 prime lenses and mostly rotating through one camera body, even though I've got 5 or 6 camera bodies and 50 lenses at my disposal. I work very minimalist, but I'm constantly playing around with what's new or something just for myself is new that I've never tried to keep it fresh. Yeah.
That's a very good point, by the way. I mean, I also have far too many lenses that I own too much, okay? But when I go out, I only take 1, 2, or maybe 3 with me, because it's a good point. You know your tools and you have a specific job to do. And if you've been shooting weddings or whatever you might be doing, you know what to anticipate. You know what your lenses are going to be, what you're going to need. You know what lenses you use. And yeah, you can go out with 1 or 2 lenses and do everything. And it's less distracting because you have less choices to make. It's either A or B. And then you just concentrate on taking the pictures with what you've got. And that 100%. Gives you better pictures. Yeah. Otherwise, you're fumbling around with 7, 8 lenses and your pictures aren't as good.
Yep, beautifully said, for sure. But that doesn't mean I'm not always interested in what new, especially now with the mirrorless sort of taking over. I don't know where you guys land on that, but I feel like they're taking over the DSLR format pretty quickly. And so with that comes a lot of new approaches to how they might do things in terms of image stabilization, the merging of video and photo, which has been said to be happening forever now. Who knows? But I just love seeing what camera companies are doing as well to sort of push the technological envelope.
Do you do anything with video? We've been talking stills all this time. Do you shoot video at all, or what's your situation with that?
No, and not at all. But I'm very deep in audio, but not video. Just stills and audio. The only video I shoot is for again the educational things. So little 10-minute video describing. Even that is generally me just speaking, looking at a computer. It's not very technical.
Well, the reason I'm asking is that, the average consumer, everybody needs a video of their wedding. It just seems like it just seems to be part of the package right now. So when people say, do you do video? Do you just have somebody else hire somebody else or have them hire somebody else to shoot the video part and you're just concentrating on stills?
Yep. I just recommended to a friend who has a company or, a couple different companies I've worked with before who I'm now friends with that I know they do good video work. Way too much in terms of, there's no way I could do video on my own. I know some people that do photo video, but it's actually the audio aspect of the day that I would think is the highest point of distraction. like having to mic people up and deal with wireless mics and getting clean audio from the DJ, all that. There's no way I'm going to be able to document the day I want to faithfully with stills.
Sam, can I ask how is the wedding business been going for you the past year? Given
it's been a ride. It's been a ride. At first, actually, everybody was like, "Oh my God, everyone's canceling it," but I was fine. Basically, through June, I wasn't shooting full weddings, but basically every client postponed to a later date for the full sort of template of the wedding day that they were planning on, but continued to get married and paid me extra to cover like an elopement, essentially, with a Zoom setup for extended friends and family. And then it was just simply a ceremony with some photos after. So I was actually really, really busy with that kind of stuff. Then I had a bit of a lull where people stopped doing that and had rescheduled everything in its entirety to next year. And now it's picking up again. So I would say basically August through September was nothing. But next year, I'm already essentially fully booked from wedding clients having moved from this year to other people feeling that pressure. Basically I have almost twice the number of people wanting to get married with the same finite set of dates. Right. So I've actually been sending a lot of work to, other referrals for things. So it's been a ride.
Schizophrenia pays.
Yeah. Seriously.
So let's talk about the Hasselblad because
I got all excited. I was looking at your Instagram feed and I see you're unboxing a Hasselblad 907X 50C. For those of you who don't know what we're talking about, Hasselblad last year announced a new digital back, a 50 megapixel back that's designed specifically for the original Hasselblad systems, the ones that were made back in the 50s, 60s, 70s, into the 80s, or even 90s. And it's kind of neat because now you have old analog technology, but you could put a digital back on it. Now it's no longer 2 1/4 square. It's not a 6x6 format. It's smaller. But now there's some wonderful old Hasselblad equipment out there, which is quite affordable. And now you could shoot digital with it. And it's kind of neat. Tell us about it. Because I have a super wide and a 500 cm, and I've been waiting for this for a while.
Okay. Yeah, fantastic. So I'm coming this is the first Hasselblad I've ever held in my hand. I don't have much perspective about what they've done before. And, but that's one of the reasons I was like, I have to have it. I don't really shoot film at all. And now that I've got this workflow, this perspective on shooting where you're basically just holding a box in your hand, like a literal square box, not a rectangle as much as it is like a cube almost. It's not exactly a cube, and you're using the shutter in the bottom right corner of this box with your same finger actually, but like then it's got a single knot. It's weird, but it's so fun. But I'll tell you what I'm actually shocked and so surprised about. I just got, not 2 days ago, mount converters. Because I have a lot of Leica lenses, I have a lot of old. I shot Nikon for a decade before I switched to Canon's mirrorless. So I have a lot of old Nikon lenses that have just kind of been sitting. And I mounted my Nikon 58 millimeter f1.2. It's the Nikkor knocked Nikkor from.
Oh yeah, sure, yeah.
It's pretty rare. It's a very special lens, and it's different. Again, there's a more popular, more common 50 millimeter f1.2, which is also great.
That's the AI. Yeah. I own that lens. It's gorgeous, and the knocked lens that you have is that much better. I handled one once, and it's gorgeous.
Yeah. I actually bought it in cash from Ryan Brenizer like 5 years ago. In the back, like he gave it to me like the trunk of his car when I was driving through New York. I was like, I have to have this lens. I mounted that to the Hasselblad, and it's amazing. There's no vignette. I don't know if it's something about the specific size of this lens. I was expecting, like a really heavy vignette because of the wider sensor size of the Hasselblad, but it covers nearly edge to edge. Like I see there's a little bit of a vignette, but I got that anyway shooting with my, full frame cameras, and it performs beautifully and it gives me a wider perspective. I don't know the exact math, but it roughly seems like it's about a 45 millimeter wide frame now, maybe closer to a 50, not a 58, which I prefer. My bread and butter focal length is 50 millimeter on the dot. 58 was always sort of awkward, but I just dealt with it because it was such a beautiful lens. Now I'm actually getting closer to that 50 millimeter range, and it performs beautifully. It's manual focus, but I get focus peaking. The live view is very, very fast and responsive on the back of this camera. You do have to shoot when you have it mounted through an adapter lens. You have to shoot with the electronic shutter, which is limiting. I don't know what the scan is, but you'll get rolling shutter if it's anything, particularly fast moving, or if you move your camera yourself. But for you would, it's manual focus anyway. The whole lens is manual focus, so the trade-off isn't that big of a difference. I would be shooting slowly anyway, even if I had something else. So anyway, I love, and I'm going to be posting a lot more photos from this particular combination. I love this setup, but I also bought the 80 millimeter f 1.9, which was the other thing that caught my eye about this system in particular. I believe it was the first, cropped medium format thing that existed that had something with that shallow depth of field, an f 1.9. I think everybody else is like f2 or 2.8.
Who makes this lens now?
Hasselblad does. The 80 f 1.9. They launched it. I don't know when, but Hasselblad makes it.
Lens. Oh, okay.
Yeah.
Yes.
It's their XCD 80 Hasselblad lens, and there's nothing else in the medium format world that exists. I don't think even from phase one that's this shallow with autofocus, I should say. I think Fuji has one launching for their medium format system next year. That's going to be an 80 millimeter f 1.5, which will be fascinating to see. But right now, Hasselblad is leading the pack in terms of that look. And I love shallow depth of field. I love shooting wide open, not just for the bokeh, but just the way colors render and everything. So that lens has been performing beautifully on it, and you do get full function with a mechanical shutter, electronic shutter. Obviously, you get autofocus. It's great. It's a very heavy lens, but it's optically incredibly sharp and beautiful. So it's a fun camera. I'm excited. I'm not anticipating using it for professional wedding work very much, but it's for my own stuff. I do a lot of landscapes.
How come you're not considering it for the wedding? I'm just curious to know why you're hesitant on that.
I mean, I could, but it's a much slower. It reminds me of sort of where Leica is and their experience of shooting with their digital rangefinders. It's just a slower process that I don't know. A lot of the weddings I get, it's far from perfect light. It's just massive amounts of improvisation for every single shot over and over and over, and so many different environments that a camera like this in really great light, maybe for the couples portraits, I could pull off a few shots, and I probably will try, but it's definitely not going to be a workhorse.
And Sam, you had distinguished, your personal work from the wedding work. How would you describe your personal work? You mentioned landscapes, but what else do you do?
Yeah, landscapes. That's basically it, which is weird because it's, I would love to photograph people in my personal work, but if I'm not hired with the intention of shooting a photo of a person, I'm very uncomfortable about just like finding random people to photograph. So yeah, a lot of my personal work is just landscapes, and that's kind of how it started for me. Before I was hired at the press club, I did photography. I grew up in Virginia, a place called Lynchburg, so we'd go on hikes a lot. My best friend also got a digital camera around the same time, so we would simply just hike and take pictures of landscapes. And
do you incorporate that as well into your Patreon work and your blogs? And do you talk about that?
Not so much.
No. That's interesting.
No, maybe a public blog post. My girlfriend is very photogenic, so I take pictures of her when we travel. In the landscapes. Right. But
You mentioned that you worked at the National Press Club, and I've seen some of those photos, a lot of portraits of celebrities and speakers who came. And from reading your posts, you have a second or 2 minutes to get a portrait of them. And as you've described, you spend a lot of time rehearsing it and prepping and being ready for that moment. And one of the things I noticed is that you have a dummy that you use
to
practice your lighting
mannequin.
And can you? I've never seen anything like that. Is that something that's common and I just don't know about it, or is this your own little trick to?
It might be. I don't know. I don't know how common it is. It was something that I just found. It was an evolution to discover that. I would I was the only photographer at the press club. So if I wasn't shooting an event, I was editing it. And if I wasn't doing that, I was just sitting around on my desk. Mm-hmm. And so I would have several hours, extra almost every single day. And I'd find myself asking coworkers like, hey, do you have a minute to step in? Like I would take over a conference room that wasn't in use and I would practice whatever setup it was. And I just realized like, you know what? I need a mannequin. I need a mannequin and I need something portable and something I can collapse, blah, blah, blah. And so I just bought a blow up doll and it was faceless, no face. And I was trying to use that for a while. I was like, oh, this kind of works, but I need a face. So I bought a creepy mask to put over the blow up doll. And I just needed the physical shape of a human face to learn about light modifiers. I had never been trained or learned about the difference between an umbrella, softbox, strip box, PLM. Most of the stuff I would use for those was Einstein stuff, but or Paul C. Buff stuff with Einstein's. And that was my method and preferred method of learning how light falls off and what my setup was going to be. And it's the exact opposite approach of how I would do wedding work. I never have a plan with my wedding portraits, but those I would have everything written down, all my light ratios right there on a piece of paper in case anything started to fail. Perfectly mapped out. Yeah.
Right. What an opportunity,
I was so grateful for that. I found the job, working at the National Press Club, full-time salaried. It didn't pay that much, but full-time salaried job right out of college. I found that through a Craigslist posting that they put up. Wow. And
wow,
I just I had a degree in computer information science, and I figured that it was a solid enough degree that I could have a few years to exit the photography thing if I wanted, and still fall back on my degree with a pretty good job. And so I just took the chance, and it all kind of worked out from there. I'm very grateful. I remember I interviewed for the same exact day for the job at the press club as I did with a job working for a NASA contractor. And I had to decide between them. I got offers from both. And it was, it's rare that somebody can point to a singular day in their life that set them on a, one course or the other.
Yeah. Well, one thing I'm taking away from this conversation is you must be working your butt off because, not only all the photography work, but all the side stuff that you're doing and continuing to educate yourself and experiment. And that doesn't, that takes time and effort and a lot of energy. So good for you.
Yeah, it's obsession. None of this is healthy, by the way. This is not what I would recommend for everyone.
No, it actually is.
Especially the dummy.
No, I take exception to that. I think it's very, very healthy because that's the only way you can truly survive. Because if you start getting comfortable and lazy about it, that's when you start slipping behind. And unfortunately, if you're a photographer, I'm not saying unfortunately, fortunately, it depends how you look at it, okay? Sure. Unlike a 9-to-5 job where you've got a lot of set things and things are just roll along, okay? When you're freelancing, okay, and you're out there putting your talents out there all the time, okay, you have to be on your toes and you have to be constantly looking and thinking and questioning and trying. So you're doing the right thing. You're doing what you have to do to survive as a photographer, as somebody who is, again, not doing a 9-to-5 gig.
Well, I appreciate that. I like that.
Sam, it's been really a pleasure talking to you today. A lot of interesting topics. I've learned more than a few things today, which is always a pleasure. If people want to see more of your work, where can they go to?
Yeah, everything kind of funnels down from my Instagram. I would say that's my most actively updated area. So Instagram.com/IamTheSam. I am Sam is always taken, so I had to add the I am the Sam. And then of course my website, samhurdphotography.com, is mostly my wedding related stuff. But yeah.
And that'll also be in our show notes. And also you have a podcast. Tell us about that.
Yeah. So one of my best friends from college also happens to be a wedding photographer. We actually shot my very first wedding together. It was the first for both of us. And his name is Nathan Mitchell. And he and I just sit down and talk. It's very photo specific, of course, being that that's what we both do for a living. But we talk about anything, movies, whatever we want. We sit down with no plan ever and just start going. And it's great. We've been going, I don't know, about 80 episodes deep now over the past 4 or 5 years. Yeah, it's called The Epic Podcast.
And what's the name of it?
It's The Epic Podcast. Okay. Yes. The more I hear myself say that, the more I regret that name. But it's what it is. So.
Okay, again, Sam, thank you so much for joining us today. And if you'd like a heads up the moment a new B&H Photography podcast goes live, here's all you got to do. Head on over to wherever you get your podcast fix, type B&H Photography Podcast into this search field, and boom, you are a member. You can also find us on the B&H Explorer website and on the B&H Photography Podcast Facebook group. All that said, my name is Alan Weitz, and on behalf of John Harris and Jason Tables, thank you so much for joining us today.